All right, and we are live. So, welcome everybody. My name is Brandy, and this is Jeff. So, welcome back to our premiere episode of the Top Producer Show. And the show on this show, we're going to be uncovering what exactly does it take to become the top producer. And right now, we're starting with the Atomic Habits. So, my first initial reaction to this has been very, very good. We're into chapter 1, and I like it a lot. And I think what a great way to actually start this show out with what are the daily habits that you need to be creating. So I've never heard of this author before. So it was very interesting just to see his backstory. As a kid, he got into an accident playing baseball, smashed his face, had to be rushed to the hospital, and had to be put into an induced coma. Eventually woke up and he had to start right back over again just to be able to play baseball. He's like, I love to play, and I was devastated by the fact that I could not play anymore. But he's like, it's gonna take a long time for me to recover to get back to where I started. So I need to start with little habits just to get a little bit better in each area every day to eventually get back. And eventually, once he got off to college, he was able to play again, and he eventually was able to become a team captain. I don't know a whole lot about baseball. All of you who do, you'll know he eventually ended up at the top of the tier where he was able to take care of the team, which was really cool. And he's like, I eventually took all that into business too. So, and he's like, and what I would like to do is show you guys how exactly to do that. So, Atomic Habits. By definition, atomic means an extremely small amount of a thing, the single irreducible unit of a larger system, or a source of an immense energy of power. Habit, a routine or practice performed regularly, an automatic response to a specific situation. So through his introduction, there was a quote, to write a book, you must first become the book, which means you have to live through the lesson before you teach the lesson. So that's what this is about. Oops, I am moving my screen around here. So, chapter 1, why small habits make a big difference. So too often we convince ourselves that masses of success require a massive action, and that we need to put pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. Meanwhile, improving by 1% isn't particularly noticeable, and sometimes, or notable, and sometimes it's not even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. So he says you have to have like a specific goal in mind, but all of us think that the change needs to be just like that. But some of us need to work on a few things first before we can get up to that earth-shattering moment where everything's going to change all at once. And that's what he talks about. He's like, everybody thinks that this is going to be immediate, because we've all seen this online paraded around where it's the overnight success. But you never actually saw what led up to that overnight success. He's like, it's always a series of habits that were built up over a period of time. And he's like, it could have been 2 years or 5 years, but it was the series of habits that led up to the overnight success, and that's what everybody's missing. So your habits compound against you, or for you or against you. So there's positive compounding, which is productivity. What are the actions that you're doing each day? Like, how many people are you presenting to each day? Who are you getting in front of? What are the actions that you are having for your business to get yourself out there? Knowledge, how are you educating yourself in your field? Like, this is one of the ways that you could educate yourself, and we are reading. It's reading and listening to people who are producing in your industry, that where you're going to learn from. And relationships. People reflect your behavior back to you, and the more you help others, the more others will want to help you. Now, negative compounding. Stress. When you put huge amounts of stress on yourself, it will have a huge effect on your health. So that's why having systems in place to actually help you with that you're not going to be as stressed out because once you create the habit, you don't think about it. It just happens naturally. And negative thoughts, what you think about yourself and about others. A lot of people have to fix their thinking first before they really, and also you're going to attract who you are, not what you want. So if you want a room with negative people, if you're negative, you're going to attract negative people. If you're a positive person, you're going to attract positive people. And then outrage. So outrage, he explained, is actually a series of a lot of little things that kind of pile up over a period of time, and then it just snaps, in which creates the outburst. So he's like, you got to find ways to fix those little issues first before they compound, so that way you're not having those aggressive outbursts. Or as John Maxwell says it, he's like, how do you resolve conflict if it's with a person? So what progress is really like? Jeff has talked multiple times about the bamboo tree, where the bamboo tree you don't see it for 5 years. You have to water it every day. It has to have sun every day, and you don't see anything. But what it's doing is it's building out its root system, so that way when it does shoot up, in 90 days, it grows,
6 weeks.
6 weeks, it grows 90 feet. I got those two numbers. Hello. Is that
Ola?
That's Ola. Hello, Ola. Good to see you. So he's like, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. He's like, you're not going to see anything, and that's where people get very, very frustrated. And eventually, it finally takes off. But for a very long time, you don't see anything, and it's just something that's very small things start compounding little by little over time. But eventually, if you stick to the little habits, it is going to happen. Now, all big things come from small beginnings, and the seed of every habit is a single tiny decision. But as a decision is repeated, the habit sprouts and grows stronger. So roots stretch themselves and branches grow. And the task of breaking bad habits is a lot like an oak tree. You have to it's very hard to tip over and get rid of that tree. And the task of building good habits is like cultivating a delicate flower over a period of time. So forget about the goals and focus on the systems. Jeff, would you actually like to go through that part?
Sure. And the first thing is I don't agree with how he says it, simply because I understand what he's saying. This book is basically so far a repeat of many other books that I've read. The Slight Edge is one of them. If you guys have ever read The Slight Edge, it's little things over a long enough period of time that add up, that determine the difference between people who succeed to people who fail. It's the little things you can't see that, seem like they make no difference at all. Another book that's really good on this is The Compound Effect. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. So really, this is just a repeat. It's nothing new. It's just reworded. I think it's really good. But when it came to, this part about forget about the goals and focus on the systems instead, I really think it's horseshit. It's not exactly accurate. If you're building a business, now, if you're just wanting to improve yourself, I get it. If you're just wanting to go along as you go along, that's great. But it's really a mix of the two things. It's the systems and the goal setting, because you can have the right system. Here's my point. You can have the right system, and because you don't have a goal, you don't get shit done. And that's where most people are at. They're doing the right thing, but there is no goal. There is no timeline. That's all a goal is. A goal is a forced amount of effort in a specific time frame. But you have to have the right system to make that work, right? So they do go hand in hand. But this is basically what he says. Be a growth, or actually this is what I said, and I got this from John Maxwell. Be a growth setter, not a goal setter. Be a growth setter. Because John Maxwell figured this out a long time ago. He's like, look, I figured out that I had this goal that I was going to be here at this amount of time. And he realized, he's like, well, yeah, I got there. He goes, like 2-3 years in, all of a sudden the fourth year, I'm like, I'm going to hit this. But now the question becomes, it's not can I get there, it's how far could I go? So he became a growth center, like how much can I get, how far can I make it? Problem number one, winners and losers have the same goals, which is inaccurate. It's inaccurate because it's just not true. What he's saying is there are two people who set the exact same goal. They go in and actually do the work, and one of them actually hits. For instance, if two people are running for a sales promotion and one of them hits and one of them doesn't, they both have the same goal. The difference is not just the habit. It's not just the habit. It could be the experience. It could be the maturity. It could be the fact that one does it with different energy. There's a bunch of different factors that go into it. It's not just the system itself, which is what he implies. Problem number two, achieving a goal is only a momentary change. That's true. That's true. I learned this a long time ago. Achieving the goal not only changes your life for the achieving a goal only changes your life for the moment. That's not true either. Why do I say that? Because hitting that goal can give you the confidence to hit the next one, and what happens is your belief actually increases as you hit these goals. Now, it's also true that a lot of people set a goal, they hit the goal, but they don't have the next goal set, which is why what we really need is not to change our goals, but to change our habits and systems. That's why I said you're not hitting what you're supposed to be hitting. Problem number three, goals restrict your goals restrict your happiness. Goals restrict your happiness. Systems approach fall in love with the process. No and yes. No meaning goals do not restrict your happiness. That's horseshit. If you attach happiness to just hitting a goal, you're unfortunately unsuccessful in life at figuring out what to be happy for. Systems approach fall in love with the process. I absolutely agree with that. But the process is figuring out the system, falling in love with the work, and then running to hit these goals. It's actually the process of running that usually makes you happy, which I think is what he's trying to say. You're successful in the moment if you complete the needed habits required to produce the result. That's something that I kind of put together. So I've always felt successful when I'm doing the needed things that need to be done, and I'm actually getting them done day after day after day. That's what success is, really. Success is found in your daily habits, right? Always set new goals. This is another thing that I learned from one of the most successful business entrepreneurs, somebody who made a gazillion dollars. I mean, he was a billionaire, recorded billionaire. But he said, always set a new goal before you complete the old goal. Always set a new goal before you complete the old goal, because you're always running in between these timelines. That's why these people who are goal setters and system oriented and habit, forming, get so much more done than the average person. Happiness is not winning so much as it is the training and the competition, or the competing. Not the competition, the competing. Competing against who? Competing against yourself, competing against your friends. People said you shouldn't compare. We're not talking about comparing yourself. We're talking about competing with somebody who's also running. What I found is in sales and recruiting and network marketing and building teams, it's very, very difficult to do everything on your own, by yourself, isolated, because it's very hard to keep the belief. It's very hard to keep the faith. It's very hard to keep the energy when there's nobody else around participating, right? Everybody else is like moving in slow motion and you're trying to run a race. So happiness, a system of atomic habits. It says small habits over time that seem worthless in the moment, but compound over time to make huge changes and improvements overall. So that's what he said. The actual purpose of the book is not some magnificent amount of energy that you're going to put in all at once, but it's the little itty bitty things. Yes and no when it comes to network marketing. Yes, it's the little things over time that you start learning when you get the system down. No, because yes, there is an amount of time, there is a specific amount of time that you're going to have to go all out, because you cannot create momentum in anything a little itty bit at a time that seems like it's going nowhere, because you're not creating enough to actually make it happen. So I love the book, but there's also things that I would say I disagree with if you're going to use this to build your network marketing business. What I find people doing is they'll read a book like this and justify their bullshit activity by a book like this and be like, yeah, but I'm just doing the little things, I'm moving forward. Yeah, but your income isn't moving. You're not recruiting anybody. You're not bringing anybody onto your team. So you kind of have to look through and say, okay, this applied to certain things in this gentleman's life. You know, building an email list over time, doing the little things every single day. He was able to take an email list from, 0 to 100,000 very quickly, and then the following year, 250,000. That's freaking, I mean, super impressive because he did all the right things. Now, what we don't know is, yes, he had the right system, and there's other people who have that same system. What we don't know is we don't know the metrics, where one person might be putting out one piece of content, he might have been putting out 100 pieces of content. We don't have that information. So that's kind of how I look at the book. That's kind of how I took it. So far, I love it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of 80-20. 80% I completely agree with. 20% I don't think it applies to every area. So.
Yeah. But I completely agree with you, and I'm happy you mentioned that because I was going to say something. But he has read how I took the book was when he was talking about creating all the little habits and the systems. When you're completely new and you're trying to work on your personal development, you're trying to work on yourself as well as how you're actually doing the business, like with presenting and contacting and inviting. All that stuff takes practice, and he talks about rather than goal setting, and just because we see that all the time, like in network marketing, where people are just like, I have this goal to do this, and then it's like, okay, but how are you going to get there? And then they're like, I don't know. And we're like, okay, well, but also with having a system is when you have a system in place, you're not gonna be doing it based on your mood. It's a lot like cleaning a room or keeping like when you were a kid, keeping your bedroom clean. If you wait for when you're in the mood or when you have the motivation, it's never gonna get done. However, if you just fixed the habits that you had that led to the messy room to begin with, you would avoid having a horribly messy room. So. There's two different ways to take it, but Jeff was exactly right. Some people will use that as an excuse to do whatever they want, but that's not true. So in the beginning, when they're brand new, you got to set some habits just to improve yourself. But then once you refine those habits and you're good at what you're doing, you're good on the phone, you're contacting, you're inviting, and then there's still things that you need to refine, but then it becomes the goal and how you're going to get there and running towards that goal. So.
Okay, with that being said, we are giving away 1,000 leads. So if you're in direct sales, if you're in network marketing, we are giving away 1,000 leads, and we're going to say that throughout, the next several episodes. By going to joinmyleadershipnetwork.com, joinmyleadershipnetwork.com, simply registering. This is if you're not already registered with us. We're giving out 1,000 leads plus a text message marketing system on how to build. So if you're in direct sales, if you're in network marketing, if you want to learn how to contact more people, if you want to increase your habits, if you want to prospect more people, go there, register, and we will email you out or Facebook message you 1,000 work from home leads for free. You do not have to buy anything as part of this promotion. So I appreciate everybody for jumping on. Welcome to the first episode, season 2, because we ran this during COVID. And here's the purpose of it. The reason we are doing this is not necessarily to be online and to sell stuff. It's really because we wanted to build a habit. That's why we did it the first time. We wanted to build a habit where we're going through this material because, running a personal development company, running a coaching company, running a certification company, the number one person that has to be growing is us. Mm-hmm. So with that, that's a wrap.
All right. Also, this will be uploaded to YouTube, so if later you want to come back and rewatch this, you are more than welcome to. You want to go follow us on YouTube, and also, guys, we're on TikTok and Instagram, so you want to go follow us there as well, because we're going to be posting small clips of coaching advice, so you guys can go follow us there as well. So with that, I will see you guys tomorrow at 12 o'clock.